Whoa, newsflash! Key to Game 2. Rajon Rondo outplays Russell Westbrook as Lakers tie series. You think? I outplayed Russell Westbrook from my couch. Russ was so bad in Game 2, it was disgusting. But how is this even possible? Both were recently injured. The Rockets got an MVP back, and the Lakers got an All-NBA third-teamer from 2012. Well, maybe it's just one game. Maybe Russ will bounce back. Or maybe we are now seeing how bad the Rockets messed up this offseason trading Chris Paul. In this video, we're looking at Russ's struggles, Rondo's success, and the Rockets' big what if. Hey, it's Casey. Welcome to AM Hoops. Hit subscribe and notification bells. 5 videos per week, Monday through Friday, always at 5 Eastern. Off-season playoffs, whatever that is worth a subscribe. Channel note, I still have my hair, obviously. I'm gonna be totally transparent here. I'm trying to find someone to sponsor this video, right? And if I can't find a sponsor within about a week, we'll just shave it off. So I'm gonna announce when I'm gonna shave my head because of the Bol bet on Instagram. The Rockets are hijacked by Russell Westbrook like every other team he's been on. In Game 2, the Lakers outscored Houston by 14 with Russ on the court, but the Rockets outscored the Lakers by 6 with Russ on the bench. Literally every time Russ was on the court, bad things happened, but Mike D'Antoni can't bench Russell Westbrook in the fourth quarter even if he wanted to. On the flip side, the Lakers have Rajon Rondo. Frank Vogel decided to play small ball against Houston, totally benching Dwight Howard, barely playing JaVale McGee, which means more minutes for Doe. Dude played 29 minutes in his second game in 178 days. He had an impact right away in Game 2. 6 assists in 5 first quarter minutes. 5 steals in the game overall. Rondo is key to keeping the Lakers alive when LeBron James sits. Check out these stats about how good Rondo has been. During the regular season, per 100 possessions, when Rondo is on the court, LA outscores teams by 2 points. When he sits, they outscore him by 7.5 points. The Lakers are better when Rondo is on the bench. But in the playoffs, it's the opposite. LA outscores by 13.5 points with Rondo and just 6 without him. The Lakers have been amazing with Rajon Rondo in the playoffs. Now, some of that is because Rondo is playing a little more with LeBron James, but bottom line, playoff Rondo is still a thing at 34 years old. Frank Vogel, even after the game, said, "Forget the stats, Rondo's impact is measured in swag," and LeBron basically said the same thing.
You know, and that doesn't always show up in the stat sheet with Doe, you know, the intangibles that he does offensively and defensively. His nose is always around the ball, and he just makes plays for us, and tonight was another example of that.
But if you do look at the box score, you see 1 for 5 from 3. That is how Rondo and Westbrook are pretty similar. Neither can shoot. Russ was 1 for 7 from downtown. Both defenses begged these guys to shoot, giving them a mile of space. The difference, though, with Rondo is this. When Russ struggles, he totally melts down. If his confidence is shook, he'll hurt the team completely. In Game 2, Russ was 4 for 15 shooting, but he also had 7 turnovers and 5 fouls. The point guard had 4 assists. Every time he went out, the Rockets had shooters around James Harden. They started coming back. Houston erased a 21-point hole, but D'Antoni can't keep Russ on the bench for long. So the Rockets lost despite having a fourth quarter lead. And you couldn't help but realize, if Houston had Chris Paul instead of Westbrook, they would be up 2-0 in this series. CP3 is a shot-making defensive player who makes his teammates better and raises his game in the playoffs. They flipped that for a guy who gets worse in the playoffs and makes his team worse. Why did they do that trade? Well, it's because CP3's personality rubbed James Harden the wrong way. But did they have to do that trade? Maybe so. Harden and Chris Paul clashed, but I thought they could work it out, and so did CP3. I mean, if he didn't, then why was Chris Paul blindsided by the trade? He thought Houston was home. Now, D'Antoni has to tiptoe around Russell Westbrook's bad mood and not make him angry. For example, I thought Mike D'Antoni had a really nice quote about Westbrook after Game 2. He said, "We're not gonna win anything without Russell. He's gonna break through it. He's a great, great player. He'll be fine." But when Russ was told that his coach said he would snap out of it, honestly, he seemed annoyed.
Snap out of what? What's that, sorry?
Snap out of what?
What do you do offensively during this series to try to get yourself going?
I'm confused. You said snap out of what?
Right about that time, the reporter probably would like to say, stop being a jerk, you know snap out of what? Turning the ball over at the wrong times and not being able to make a shot. Look, that headline may be right about Game 2, Rondo outplayed Westbrook, but the headline for the year in Houston should be, what if they never traded Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook? I think they would have been 2020 NBA champions. This was the perfect year with no Warriors. It seems like every team honestly is pretty good, but no one's great. I mean, we thought the Clippers were great, right? But they keep going back to pretty good and beatable. What ended up happening with Houston really is they couldn't get over the Warriors hump and the pressure got to be too much. 2 years ago, the Rockets lost to the Dubs in 7 games after Chris Paul hurt his hamstring. So the Rockets talked all year about how they got screwed. If CP3 was healthy, of course they would have won a chip. Well, the next year comes and they lose to the Dubs in 6 this time without Kevin Durant, while the Rockets are fully healthy. And I get it, they were probably embarrassed. They talked trash basically all year, and then when it came time to win without Kevin Durant and the Rockets healthy, they couldn't do it. So afterward, they were upset, they were probably pointing fingers, and they figured, yeah, we can't beat the Warriors as constructed, let's mix it up. But they traded Chris Paul 62 days later. I mean, the dust hadn't even settled. Feelings hadn't settled down, and I think if they would have just waited, this would have been their year. Of course, I don't need to tell you how great Chris Paul was this season. He was an all-star, that sums it up. All I really need to do is point out that the Thunder took the Rockets to 7 games when people thought they wouldn't even make the playoffs, and CP3 was their best player. Bottom line, other than passing on Michael Jordan in the 1984 draft, this is the biggest what if in Rockets history. If they never traded Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook, they would have won the 2020 NBA title. CP3's legacy would have been changed, so would that of James Harden. Now, I realize I am putting myself out there with this prediction that the Rockets will lose because this series is tied at 1-1. But there is no reason to believe in the Rockets when Westbrook is their second best player. He has never gotten a team without Kevin Durant out of the first round. They barely did it this season. LeBron James, on the other hand, has not made the playoffs and not the finals since 2010. Look, if I'm wrong, I will be the first to admit it, but Game 2 made me think what could have been with Chris Paul. But instead, they're tied to Russell Westbrook in the playoffs, which is always a bad thing. Look, I'm not saying he's the only reason they lost Game 2 or they're gonna lose the series, but he is the biggest reason. And he's also their biggest what if since passing on MJ. Support AM Hoops and click subscribe. Don't miss a daily NBA video.